If you are living with an emotionally abusive spouse or a porn addict or someone you just desperately want to see some changes in, you might be wondering where to start. I'm going to show you how to get back your voice and power in this relationship. I'm going to give you 3 steps to flip the power dynamic and stop sacrificing yourself in this relationship. It does not take 2 to tango. Your independent self-worth and strength is going to be very important in this process. When you are in an emotionally abusive relationship, this step can be really scary, so let's do it together. I'm Coach Ketra. I have been through emotional abuse, betrayal, and a divorce after a 17-year marriage. And to get through this process of flipping the script, you're going to need to channel the inner warrior in you, the 90s girl, gangster rap, powerful something, whatever that is for you. You need to channel that part of you to get through this process. But you don't have to do it alone. A disclaimer before I start the steps. If you are in a physically abusive relationship, I do not recommend this method right off the bat. That's a different dynamic, and I would recommend you get very specific planning and help for that. So if you are not in an abusive relationship, this is what you'll want to do. Step 1, preparations start with yourself. Is it safe for you to approach this situation? That is the most important question to ask first. You'll want to mentally prepare yourself for this process. Ask yourself a few questions. What are you afraid of? What are you confused about? And what do you need to educate yourself about more so you have a better understanding before you approach your partner? Your partner likely lives in a separate reality from you. So the reasoning that you put into something is not going to go over with him very well because his reality is different than yours. So educating yourself about those differences so you can better understand is an important part of the preparation process. You will want to ask yourself, what is your value? I'm going to guess that you are more of a badass than you think you are. Determine where you get your value. Is it from your religion, your beliefs, your spirituality? Determine where that comes from and draw from that. Ask yourself, what would I tell my best friend if she was in this situation? And then tell yourself that over and over if you need to. You want to be able to love bomb yourself. Get yourself to a place where you are feeding yourself so you're not dependent on the crumbs that this person might throw your way every now and then. Start gathering the facts. While you're preparing, determine where the imbalance of power is really at. Is there a financial imbalance, a spiritual imbalance, an emotional imbalance, even a work imbalance about what gets done around the house and who carries the weight? Start making that list. Be sure to really dig in to the questions of what is not mutual in our marriage, what is not reciprocated, and document events. If you have trouble remembering the details of what's going on, which is really common in emotionally abusive relationships, start writing it down word for word as soon as you have any kind of argument, no matter how big or small. This will help you get clarity and see reality for what it is. Once you do that, you will want to build a support system. Find a coach, a therapist, a support group, a church group, someone, somewhere, even if it's just online, that can validate your experience and you can share openly with. This will give you an incredible amount of strength, but you will only want to choose groups and people who are able to validate you, who understand this, who have studied it, or who have gone through it. As we're preparing for this request we're going to make of our spouse, you might want to start thinking, are there men in his life that he really respects who would totally back you up, who would not get sucked into his manipulations and twistings? If there is someone who will totally back you up and call him on his crap, you're going to want to get them in your corner. You may want to have them present when you present your request to him. The last part of the prep phase is going to be brainstorming. You're going to want to decide, what is it that you need him to stop doing or start doing? Maybe you need him to stop watching porn. Maybe you need him to stop criticizing you. Maybe you need him to start paying attention to you and stop withholding affection and ignoring you. Whatever it is, you're going to want to compile these lists with specific examples of the times when he has not done these things or has done these things to you that have been hurtful. Step 2 is making your request and implementing boundaries. You are going to see that the breakthrough does not come before the breakdown, and presenting this is going to feel really big, and it's going to be really big. So getting your ducks in a row is important. Trying to change him yourself will not work. It never works. Implementing these requests and your boundaries will protect you, keep you more emotionally and physically safe, as well as give him the opportunity to prove whether he loves you or not. The truth is that actions speak louder than words, and you are only to believe behavior. Usually these guys can talk in circles, make promises like you wouldn't believe. So their words mean nothing. Their actions will show whether or not they are serious about mending things. You are going to write out what you cannot tolerate anymore. This is not a negotiation. You are not sitting at the table trying to meet in the middle here. Your job is to stay calm and committed to the truth and present in writing everything that you've gathered in the prep phase, all the examples and all of the non-negotiables that you will not tolerate anymore in order to present them to him. In your request, you will want to be extremely specific about how you expect him to remedy this situation. If he has a sexual addiction, as an addiction to porn, you will want to demand that he see a certified sexual addiction therapist, and probably one that also does EMDR. You may also want to request specific therapy for men on the narcissistic spectrum. There are therapists out there that will do intensives and ongoing treatment, either in person or online, for these specific issues. Or look at abuser programs. Abuser programs are specifically targeted toward the anger and controlling aspects that these people present. They don't have to be physically abusive to attend them or to learn a great deal from them. It is always best to seek out an intensive or a therapist or a group leader that is a man. They will not accept correction and training from a woman at this point because they already have a warped sense of women in their head. So it's very important that these people be men who can call them out. Provide all of these requests and the information in writing with the name and phone number of the intensive or therapist that you want them to contact. So there is no guessing or questioning or wondering what you asked them to do. Initial intensives can be very helpful because they're kind of like an emergency room for the situation. You go to a week-long intensive or a 3 or 4 day intensive and someone totally calls them on their crap and gets them on the right path, but it is not enough. I recommend intensives because I think they jumpstart the process, but I do not recommend only intensives. I recommend ongoing help, very specific help, narcissistic treatment, CSAT therapist, EMDR, because this process is not a quick or easy fix. You'll need to ask yourself, what are you going to do if he does not respect your requests? You're going to have to make him staying the same a lot more painful than him changing. The pain has to be intolerable because the pain of him changing is intense. So the pain of him staying the same has to increase, which means you might want to remove services. As a spouse, you probably provide a lot of services. Maybe you do his laundry, you cook him dinner, you pick up after him, you make appointments for him, you make his life convenient, and you care for him. Perhaps if he doesn't do some of these, you need to remove those services. You may need to stop the sexual relationship for 90 days or more. You might need to move into a separate bedroom or move into a separate home. You may need to file for legal separation or file for divorce. This truly is his opportunity to show you, does he care about this marriage? Does he care about the pain he's causing? Even if he's still sort of blind to it. Most men who are just on the spectrum and not full-blown narcissists, most of them will want to save the marriage. They will want to spare themselves the public humiliation and shame of going through a divorce. That works to your benefit here, but you have to be willing to follow through. I do need to say, I do not recommend couples therapy at this point. I recommend a therapist that will have you give your side of the story and then periodically check in with his therapist to tell him how he's doing or what's going on. But I do not recommend regular couples therapy because it can become a big mess. Step 3, prepare for the backlash. This is where you are going to have to be a badass. You will not want to engage in bargaining, going down rabbit trails, blame shifting. You just say, stop, I'm not discussing this. You leave the room. Whatever boundary you've set, this is the time to not engage so he knows you are not willing to negotiate. Do not let them focus on your issues. This is about them. Their issues represent a bigger problem than whatever issues you might have that are mutual and normal marital communication issues. If those need to be addressed, his issues must be addressed first. And then when you're in a safe place, you can come back to address your mutual issues. But this is not about mutuality right now. This is about you keeping the focus on him and not letting him blame shift you. Keep reminding yourself that most men do not want a divorce. Every single couple that I know who has gone through this recovery and restoration process of changing a man's brain dynamic to be not as bent on a narcissistic view and into a healthy, empathetic view, every one of those women gave their husbands an ultimatum. Every one of them said, you are going to do this or else. And they meant it. And when your husband knows that you mean it, you will see whether he cares or not. If he has decided to book the intensive, start the process, whatever, in that waiting time before he starts and you guys are still existing in the same space, don't engage in the blame shifting and the bargaining. Say things like, regardless, just shift the focus back. Regardless, we'll just see what the experts have to say. Or you can say something like, you are completely entitled to your own opinion, but I'm not discussing that. He will want to engage you in an argument so he can blame shift back onto you and get the focus off of himself. He wants to make you crazy so you'll take the bait and he can say, see, you think I'm the one that needs help, but look how crazy you're acting. Don't engage with that. Get out of the house, walk away, whatever you need to do to keep from taking the bait. While you wait, keep as much emotional and physical distance as necessary to keep yourself safe and to keep you from enduring any more emotional damage before he gets help. This is a long process. This part that I'm presenting you is big and scary and can project you into the process, but the process itself can be very long. And that's why good boundaries are really important to keeping you mentally and physically safe. If you'd like to read some books that might help you with this process, I recommend Should I Stay or Should I Go by Lundy Bancroft, and also The Verbally Abusive Man, Can He Change by Patricia Evans. For more helpful information, see my video on verbal abuse and self-regulation, and also check out my link to my website in the description. My link to one-on-one coaching is there with all the information if you are interested in that. Also, be sure to hit like and subscribe and comment below to let me know what you thought of this video and what you would like me to cover in the future. Until next time, curate a life by your own design.